Hi people, thanks for tuning in to the Grit and Growth podcast. So this is the launch of this podcast. I've got a private community, as you can see out there, the Grit and Growth project. This was solely created, this community, for solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, people that want to become business mindseted, but also really struggling with, I call it mental fitness, but with their mental fitness, how do I think about things to do this way, X, Y, Z? So that community was founded to support all of these types of individuals. And hopefully now we're making the podcast public to people. This will help you guys as well. Now, where this is the launch, it made sense for me to be interviewed first because it gives you a chance to get to know me, those ones that aren't part of the community. It gives you a chance to get to know me and why I'm hosting this regularly. And I've got here Blake Nash. Now, Blake is from a media house. He is actually one of our sponsors. So I thought, no better person to interview me with regards to my 12 challenges. Blake isn't always comfortable being on camera, even though he is a video guy.
I'm always on the other side of the camera, that's why.
Exactly. So we're putting him outside of his comfort zone today, to be fair, because like I said, Blake's used to being on the other side of the camera, but I can't interview myself on my 12 challenges in 10 months because I don't know what people like yourself and people like Blake think about these things. So they're looking from the outside in. So we're going to explore some of the mindset related side of what I went through during those 10 months and also any questions Blake's put together. I don't really know what he's going to ask. That's what we're here for. So I'm going to hand over to Blake and then you can take the podcast from there.
So just quick introduction. Obviously, I'm Blake Nash, founder and owner of The Media House. We are a full media production company here on the Isle of Wight that take care of any photo and video needs. Proud to be a sponsor of the Grit and Growth podcast. And yeah, I'm going to ask you some questions on your 12 challenges in 10 months.
Let's go.
So one of the first things was, how did you stay mentally stable whilst doing it? What was your main drive of these 12 challenges?
Well, the simple reason was why I've done it, really. So the thing called Zoe's Law, obviously you're aware of this, Blake, but my sister passed away in 2020 of melanoma cancer. It's been founded to, I'm allowed to say this now, negligence. The report come back just a few weeks ago, actually, that if she had been seen properly when she went to the doctors and the GPs, she had an 86+% chance of living until she's 80. So she died really, but she didn't need to die. She had an opportunity to live multiple times. So me and my family created Zoe's Law. With Zoe, actually, me and Zoe spoke about this before she died. She said, Charlie, can you try stopping this happen to other people? So their kids don't have to lose their mum, because she had 2 little boys. So actually, my why was pretty simple for me, because I wanted to raise awareness for my sister. And then obviously anyone watching, please do look up Zoe's Law. We'll share it on the links anyway. And why I then done it, that was accidental. I was doing a Tough Mudder with 2 of my friends the year prior to me commencing the 12 challenges in 10 months. It was actually slightly more than 12 in the end, but 12 officially.
Yeah.
And me and my 2 best friends were just wearing a Zoe's Law t-shirt. And when we were going round, people just kept asking us questions about Zoe, what's Zoe's Law. That was a bit awkward when I say my sister who's died. There was, oh gosh. Yeah. But what I realised on that day, in our modern world, how we react far better to people doing things they don't enjoy than actually just taking notice or something. So I realised that on that day. So then I sort of thought, well, let's do some events, that really enable us to get Zoe's message further afield. So it started off just as another Tough Mudder. But then I thought, well, I've already done Tough Mudder, so I can do that. But let's do what's something as a bucket list thing. Actually didn't feature as part of the 12 and 10, but it started off with the Great Wall of China, walking the whole Great Wall of China. And I thought, that's not hard enough. I thought, that's easy, really. So then I thought Everest Base Camp. That's something everyone, well, not everyone, but people really aspire to doing. It's a really tough thing. So I booked that. But then I thought, well, wait a minute, I have more affiliation to Africa. I love Africa.
Yep.
one of the biggest mountains in the world is Kilimanjaro. So I thought, if I'm doing Everest, I might as well do Kilimanjaro, and then it escalated.
So basically, it just started off with one challenge. You've seen it get noticed, and it's like, right, let's just chuck loads in a bit.
Yeah, it just escalated pretty badly for me, basically. So my reason why was pretty simple. I wanted to raise awareness for my sister. I didn't want her to die in vain, and really by sharing Zoe's story, whether it's melanoma or whether it's something else, health related, we know I've had hundreds of people contact me alone, but thousands combined to Zoe's Law who just thanked us for sharing her message because they realised something and they got checked. It turns out it was early enough to help them. And if they were saying if they hadn't heard of Zoe's story, they probably wouldn't have looked. So
you see now, essentially saving people's lives.
Yeah, well, the aim is really, because then it's not, she didn't die for no reason really. And she left behind 2 little boys without a mum. Plus her family and friends, but so for me, that's too early for kids to lose their parent.
Yeah.
And also she's my little sister, my baby sister. So, parent or older brother, sister also shouldn't be, saying goodbye to their daughter or sibling. So there's multiple reasons, but it was quite a simple why, really.
Okay. Well, out of all of the challenges that you've done, which one stands out the most to be the hardest one that you've done?
So yeah, it's quite tough really, because people were going to see that I'd done. So the 12 were, I don't even remember. I'm going to remember all the 12 to be fair, but Everest, Kala Patthar, that was 13, wasn't it? Kala Patthar, Mount Etna, Kilimanjaro, 76-mile bike ride, Go 8, 2 sea swims, Tough Mudder, trail marathon. I mean, they're all tough. And different points of tough, but the hardest, not the hardest physically, the hardest for me was Go 8.
I was about to get onto that because most people look at Go 8 as like a fun activity.
Oh, yeah, no.
This one stood out for me when I seen this on your list of, how's that a challenge?
Yeah.
But why is that a challenge for you?
I asked that. So I was petrified of heights.
Yeah.
And I attempted Go 8 2 or 3 years prior. And I couldn't finish it. I can't even remember now. I think there's 5 or 6 parts of Go 8, and I got through 2, and I was like, I can't do it. I mentally and physically just could not deal with the heights and the control. Yeah. I think it was the control, because obviously when I'd done some other things in the past, I've done skydives and wing walks, so they're far higher. But I think I had control, and it's closer to the ground, and I was petrified. So it was actually my wife that put that idea in my head about Go 8. She's like, I know other people might not understand the Go 8, but I know that is going to be the hardest thing for you. So why don't you do it? I was like, do you know what? That's a good bloody idea.
Yeah.
And I finished it. I wasn't very polite on the day. I did take my stepdaughter and my wife. And my stepdaughter's 12, and she didn't really get on. I wasn't very polite. I was just like, move. Like, I have to go first.
Yeah.
Because if you're in my way and slow me down, I'm not doing it. I need to just go and do it. So that was the hardest in terms of personal, like, coming back to the mindset of why we created all the Grit and Growth project. Mentally, that was the hardest. In terms of physically, there was different points of different ones. Like Kilimanjaro, for me, I did not appreciate how hard the summit. The rest of it was hard, but I'm a physically fit guy, mentally fit guy. So I knew I could do it. And actually, the whole way up, I was thinking, what's a bit of a breeze for someone like me? Summit day was, I mean, you had to dig real deep. Like, it's freezing. It was 6 hours of, like, Everest is a lot easier because it's more gradual. Kilimanjaro is that, so it's just like zigzagging all the way up. And it just went on forever.
Just felt like it was never ending.
Yeah, and I've never had, genuinely, bar like the obvious emotions of my sister passing and being sad, or seeing my son born, and I'm not really an emotional guy. When I got to the summit of Kilimanjaro, I was so overwhelmed with, like, so many emotions, happiness that I've just done. That was the hardest thing I've ever done physically. Sadness. My sister's never going to experience any of these things in life. She was only 26. Just so many emotions. And I cried for like half an hour. I couldn't stop crying coming down. I just had tears coming it was so overwhelming. Yeah. And I got back down to the base camp, and my wife, I managed to get signal there, and I texted her saying I've just done it, and she was like, "Oh, you must be so proud of yourself. I'm so overwhelmed." I was like, "No, actually, I feel like rubbish." I think I said I feel like shit.
Yeah.
I've never felt so bad in my life. My head's hurting, my nose is bleeding, my knees feel like I've got glass shattered in them. I'm not in a good mood. That was the actual text she got back from me.
Ouch. Well, at any point from that, then, did you ever feel like giving up?
No, the closest I probably come to giving up was the bike ride, because 76 miles. And I've never rode a road bike in my life before that morning. And I remember getting to 20 miles and physically my body was done. But I've never done it. So physically I was like KO'd a bit. And I really hit that wall. And we actually stopped at the top of this hill. I didn't say it out loud because to me I don't like to be defeated. But in my head I was like, I'm going to have 56 miles. I don't like, how am I going to do this? And
Especially if you've never done long distance cycle riding before. I remember I tried that and I couldn't walk the next day from certain areas of sat on a seat. Like, how did you deal with that?
I've always been mentally, I know I call it like mental fitness a lot. So and people who've part of the community and follow me a lot know that. But I've always been strong mentally. I knew mentally I could do it. But that was the first time I questioned all of it. I was like, Kilimanjaro I didn't. Kilimanjaro was the hardest thing, but I was not going to not do it. There was no way I would die probably before I'd not do it. But that, where I was physically not ready for it, I just really had one of those moments around 20 miles and I was like, how? And then genuinely, this is cheesy, this is probably sad to some people, everyone views things differently. I just thought of watching my sister die. And I was in the room with her when she died, and it was quite a horrible 12 hours, that last 12 hours, and I watched her try and live. Like, I've seen people die and it can be peaceful. Zoe was not peaceful. She was just trying to live, and I genuinely just got myself in that mindset of like, if I could see her trying to live, then me doing another 56 miles pretty easy actually. It sounds really weird, but as soon as if you can figure out a way in your brain to have triggers like that, the next 56 miles, I didn't really, sounds weird, but like, I physically didn't struggle at all. I body-wise probably was. Yeah. I just got this zone, and there was these group of ladies that I was mentoring for about 10 months at that point. They started up a business, and I saw them most Thursdays. So I knew them all relatively pretty well. And I saw one of them the following Thursday, and she goes, "Oh, I saw you on doing your bike ride on the weekend." I was like, "Did you?" She's like, "Yeah, do you remember you going up I can't remember what the road's called, such and such hill, and I was on a horse and cart with my mum." And I do remember seeing those two ladies. I remember seeing those ladies. She's like, "Yeah, it was a bit awkward." My mum said, when I was approached her, I said, "Oh, I know this guy, and then you just didn't talk to me."
You're so in the zone.
Yeah, she was like, them. My mum's like, "I don't think you do know that guy." That was how much I was just in this, from 20 miles, there was no like, I was just got into this mental space of like, if she could try and live, I can finish it. So it does sound quite out of body-ish type way of looking at it. But I've seen people do far more impressive things than me. And you recently that gent, I can't remember his name though, ran the whole length of Africa, didn't he?
Yes.
You physically your body cannot do that. So mentally, you have to take yourself into this place of like going past.
Is he doing over a marathon every single day or something? When he do it?
Something crazy he done. Like, so when you look at that, and like people sometimes ask me, "Mine," I just think you can, if you've got a trigger, and you've got to figure out what that is.
Yeah.
And coming back to understanding your reason why, that's helpful. Because if I just decided to do 12, 13 challenges in 10 months, for the sake of it, I can tell you now, I wouldn't have finished that bike ride. I maybe would have struggled with Kilimanjaro. Go away, I wouldn't have done because I already didn't do it before. So those things, I doubt I would have finished because I didn't really have any leverage.
Yeah.
No leverage over myself to say, why do I need to finish this? So there's no reason behind it. Then I'll stop now because it's pretty hard.
There's a lot of these mindset traits within these challenges that you've done that people can incorporate in business.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So what's one of the the main mindset takeaways from your challenges that people can implement in business?
So try and simplify it. I think I'm going to try and simplify it because it's such an emotional journey of doing that, what I did. So some of the basic tips are just simplifying things, like we all, if we imagine that 76-mile bike ride again, let's just use that one again, or Everest. I was away for nearly a month. Let's just imagine that. Now, if you are just looking at Everest like, oh gosh, I've got a month. That's going to take a month to get to where I need to be, and am I going to be fit enough? Am I going to be well enough? Am I going to get altitude sickness? Am I going to? It's the same in business. If you think, right, I want to start this business, or I've got this project in my business. If you overthink it, you're never going to get there.
Yeah.
And that's why in business, I've always separated goals into short terms. And this, you work with me a little bit. If you want to be a millionaire, that's fine.
Yeah.
But let's be a bit more specific. How do we get from A to B? So let's think about your first year in this millionaire journey. What's the first year look like? And then from that first year, let's go back down to monthly. So then you can actually see where you're going. And so that's what the transferable skills are from this. Because again, coming back to the Everest, if all I was thinking about was the base camp, and I ended up going further than the base camp, higher, I probably would have struggled more. But what I actually genuinely did on that type of thing was break it down into days. I knew tomorrow I've got to hike 8 hours and do X amount of altitude.
Yeah.
Increase and decrease. That's all I looked at. Because
if you kept thinking about the end goal, it's just going to be constantly daunting. Well, if you broke it down into sections.
I can't remember. I did share it on socials, but the amount of miles we walked in a 20-something day period, was it ridiculous? You would read that and think, at that elevation and incline and decline and altitude, you just think, is that even possible? So if you looked at that, you wouldn't be able to do it. Whereas actually, I genuinely just look day to day. Tomorrow, what have I got to do? Yeah. I've got to do 8 hours and I've got to do an incline of 1,000 meters. Let's just get that done. Yeah. Then we worry about what comes after that. Yeah. And I saw people on the mountain fail because of their mindset, not because of physical fitness. I think you need a certain base level of fitness, but the rest of it is in your head. Same in business. If you think I want to own 500 properties, how do you get from 1 to 500? Yeah. So then we go down to how do we get our first 5? How do we get the next 20? How do we get the 50? How do we get? That's how I look at it. So these are fully transferable, and the simplest term is just simplify it a bit. Focus on the short goals, then go from A to B from there, then C to D, and each one like that.
So I just want to go on to the fact that there's 12 challenges. 10 months is a long period of time. Yeah. Like, what was the support that you've had from the back end, from multiple businesses that you have and your family?
Yes.
How was what's the support been like from that side of things?
I think in general, the simplest version is I wouldn't be able to do it if I didn't have support.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've got 6. I'm in a fortunate position. I work bloody hard for guys. Financially, I am able to take time out of work and still earn money. Yeah. I've always talked about earning money while you sleep, sort of thing. So I've created that lifestyle for me. But yeah, if I didn't have the support from family, my wife, businesses that supported me financially. If you think just doing Everest or just doing Kilimanjaro or just doing Etna or these are expensive things. So loads of local businesses financially supported me. But I think it's more not everyone understood it. There was challenges, I had some people you mentioned about the Go Ape who put their 2 pence in saying it's not even a challenge. Well, you don't know what a challenge is, but like now you understand why that was a challenge. But that was tough. But I think support from my family was obviously helpful. I've got a 3-year-old son as well. Yeah. So going to Kilimanjaro for 10, 12 nights, whatever it was, and then Everest for nearly a month and everything else is a lot of time. So my wife took a lot of that stress, really, or I don't know if it's stress. I mean, I love being with my son, but she took a lot of that burden. And then just general support. I had people like Andrew and Annabelle that got involved in quite a few of my challenges.
Of your challenges. And you've had some good support from friends doing it with you as well.
That's really helpful for me because if you think 10 months is it's a short time to do what I did, but a long time in terms of if I was doing 13 challenges on my own for 10 months, it's a really lonely place to be. And especially if you think at times there is some really, really tough moments physically and mentally. Yeah, for me, that's probably the mental side was always the harder part than the physical, because I just know mentally I'm going to get myself through stuff. So physically I'm going to go there. So it's the mental side that'll be more challenging than physical, because my brain will do what I want it to do. So that's the bit that I had to control. So when you have friends who are supportive, and, you know, Andrew and Annabelle specifically probably don't realise how helpful it was them getting involved with, like Andrew done Everest and Kilimanjaro with me. Annabelle done Kilimanjaro and the Three Peaks. I had a friend Chris who done the trail marathon with me, and Freya who works for me. I had Joe and Sam do the bike. You know, they're bike fanatics, weirdly. But, you know, without those people, I may have struggled far more, because you look at the Richard Bransons. I mean, I'm going to use business analogies now. Richard Bransons and Alan Sugar or Bezos, and all these most successful people have people.
Yeah.
You know, they don't get there by themselves. They have people that are better at things than they are, or people they can confide in, people they talk to. Obviously, you even offered support. You've done a couple of videos and stuff for me with the earlier ones as well. All these things are really helpful, because it is lonely. And if you're in your head the whole time, when you need your head to get you there, it's not a good place to be.
So you just mentioned there the fact that when you did the bike one, Sam and Joe are bike fanatics.
Yeah.
So essentially choosing the right teammates to help you on the right challenges goes down to business as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I always say, put yourself in rooms of people who are better than you.
Yeah.
So if you don't know something, I'm going to go in the room with a person that does know it. And if they're not in there, I'm going to find a person that does know that person to put me with them. That's how I am. So same with that. I knew Joe's a triathlete and Sam's a bike fanatic. Yeah. So I knew they're both good on the bike. So that was invaluable for me to have them on that day. Yeah. I mean, whether they believed I could do it or not, I don't know. They didn't say that. They were the only two people, actually, bar my mum and that, who didn't say I couldn't do it. Most people about that bike ride specifically were saying there's no way you can do that. You've never been on a road bike in your life. How are you going to go and do 76 miles? Those two didn't. They were with me. They were on my team. I mean, after, Joe did say, I did think it was, I did think I weren't sure how you're going to do that. Yeah. So yeah, that was invaluable. If I didn't have the support of those guys specifically, and some of the businesses locally that obviously financially supported, I just wouldn't have been able to do it. Yeah, it's as straightforward as that. And again, coming back to that, what people probably didn't realise is some people in the business will think, oh, it's all right for him, you can go and do a jolly, and you're mentally exclude the fitness side of it, because I keep coming back to my mental fitness. You are mentally pushing yourself to the limits quite regularly in a short time frame. Yeah. Everest, Kala Patthar, I've got altitude sickness on Kala Patthar, you know, Kilimanjaro, bike ride, marathons, you're mentally, all I'm doing is thinking about my sister every day. So I'm constantly putting myself in this environment where I had a lot of grief. So if you don't have people to support you, you can't really get through that. So I think it was that they were invaluable. Like I said, I don't think those guys probably realise how I told them how good it was. But I mean, whether they really realised it could have been the difference between me finishing some of them or not, especially the bike ride. Gosh,
so the support network is, you know, so important, especially in people's day-to-day lives and their business lives. Yeah, you know, support from everyone around is so important.
It's even like a mentorship, you know, in business. Some people turn their nose up to mentorship, which I think is naive.
I've had it in the past.
I was about to say stupid, but I'm going to call it naive.
I've paid for, as you know, I've paid for mentorship in the past, and the amount of people that were like, why are you paying for that? And like, they just don't understand.
Until you do it, you don't get the return on investment. Yeah. Now, with me, choosing people like Sam and Joe, people I know that knew the bikes, I weren't paying them to mentor me as such, but I knew there were people that I needed. Yeah. Like, they did give me tips and tricks and just being there. I knew Andrew was a fit guy. I wouldn't have asked him to do Everest with me if I didn't think he had the same capabilities as me, because otherwise I'm going to be dragging someone. Yeah. And I'm here to get it done. everything I did, either trail marathon, Chrissy Elliott, I knew he was phenomenal at those. To be fair, he was very patient because he waited for me. I knew that I needed these people to really finish it. Now, obviously, Andrew, I'm not saying necessarily fitter than me, but I knew he was on the same level that he could do it.
Yep.
And I wouldn't be holding me back, because that's another problem. If you're going to get a business mentor who doesn't know what you know, then what's the point?
Yeah.
You have to put yourself, I said it already, put yourself in rooms of people that know things you don't know. Yeah. And I did that the whole way through the 13 challenges. And Chris, who the mountaineer that went on Kilimanjaro, Everest, 3 peaks, he was phenomenal. He's such a light-hearted guy, and I mean, the scouser who talks quite direct at times, but he was great as well. Really influential guy for me finishing them, because he could see when you struggled, and he could see when you're finding it easy. So he knew, he's an experienced guy, so he knew how to do things in different ways at different points. So I think, there were so many people I could thank. Yeah. To be honest.
And they're saying the different types of people, from different backgrounds, and different skill sets is exactly what this podcast is going to be about.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, just you want to explain?
So with this podcast, obviously we were inviting people from all different walks of life. We're going to have super successful people. I've got lots of friends who are very successful. We've got, doctors who are going to talk about stress-related stuff. We've got we can have Nigel, who's a CEO of the Mount Etna Hospice, who's phenomenal. So what we're going to go through on these podcasts is really exploring all the different facets that come together to create a strong mindset.
Yeah.
Because genuinely successful people understand you've got strong mental capabilities, fitness, mental health, whatever we're going to call it, that you need to have that to be successful, genuinely successful. Because let's say you don't have a good mindset, you don't have good mental health, you could still become successful, but you can't maintain it.
Yeah.
And you will, if you're not healthy physically, mentally, it's not sustainable. You will get ill, you'll die early, or you'll be paying loads of money to medical staff to keep you alive, or so forth. So for me, it's about creating this, and I learned a lot, obviously, doing the 12 and 10 myself. I probably become more spiritually aware. I didn't realise I'm not really spiritual per se, but I probably am more than I thought, and I learned that on there, and that was a really good learning curve for me in terms of that bike. I come back to that bike ride, I knew I was mentally strong, but that day specifically, I really saw what the brain does for you. Just that ability to really cancel out all of that pain and physically fuckness.
There's one way of putting it.
Yeah, I don't even know the correct word there. Just it was that really showed me. I already knew I was strong because of what I dealt with, but not just my sister, a lot of stuff in my childhood and whatnot, and business.
Yeah.
But that really showed you what your brain can do. If I can do 56 miles on being fucked, then your brain's super important. So that's why we created the podcast, the Grit and Growth project.
The podcast is just a bolt on to the project.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just a link to that, because it's a lot of these things are talked about a lot in the community, but I wanted to start making more public foundations. So that's why the podcasts come about, really, and hopefully people resonate. This 12 and 10 was really tough, or 13 and 10, but it still.
I was to say, leading on to the fact that is there going to be any more challenges coming up?
Yeah, I can't stop now. I'm not doing 12 and 10 again. I mean, what I didn't appreciate about, but I should have probably said this when you asked what was the hardest thing. Actually, looking back at it when I finished Everest. So if you think, I had the Peak Emotions Summit in Kilimanjaro, which was maybe 4 towards the end of the 12, so not at the end. That was probably the peak of my emotions of happiness, gratitude, sadness, all of that stuff. Everest, I was flat. When I finished Everest, most people might be watching this thinking, bloody hell, you've done something that most people only dream of. I was just relieved. I literally finished that thinking, I'm done. there was no real. I wasn't emotional. I wasn't overwhelmed. It was just like, yeah, I'm done now. So I think that time was actually probably the hardest thing in those 12 months or 10 months, sorry, because coming back to the mental side, I was constantly putting myself into that zone of like grief constantly, because I couldn't physically do something. I mean, you might well ask me for advice on stuff, but yeah, I couldn't physically do some of those things, so I had to rely on my mental fitness. And yeah, that was a bit I probably undervalued, how hard that would be, because I bloody love my son, so being away from him so much was a nightmare as well. So yeah, that was that. Sorry to come back to the hardest bit, but that was the hardest. So much in such a short time definitely started to affect my relationships with home. Because it's natural. It's good. It's hard to maintain a healthy home life if you're constantly putting yourself into, I don't want to sound like an army person, but you're putting yourself into battle constantly. So you gotta put there. But no, there is more challenges. I don't think I'll do 12 and 10 again.
No, so spread it out. And when you've got more challenges, coming up, I'm sure you're going to announce them across.
I've got Tough Mudder again next month. Got 22 of us going along now. I've got a few other things I want to book, haven't booked, but I have booked Mont Blanc next August. I'm going to summit Mont Blanc. Anyone wants to join, ping me a message. More the merrier. I like to drag people into these. But yeah, Mont Blanc, it looks wicked as well.
I'll send a drone up to follow you on that one.
They can even go that high? I don't even know. I know they can if you take Cuttle with you.
Oh yeah, me walking up with you.
Yeah, but that looks wicked. That looks brilliant. So no, I have got stuff pending. There's other things I want to do. I think I've got a bug for it. I want to do something really hard, but that takes a bit more. My idea is going to take a lot.
If anyone's got any suggestions or something incredibly hard, send it.
If you're a successful business person and you want to donate £45,000, I've got something super tough I want to do. But I need to raise 45,000, so it's put on the back burner.
Because that is another thing, isn't it? These challenges are very expensive, and you have been, doing those all out of your own pocket.
Yes, it costs a lot. And I can't sustain it forever. So moving forward, I need to raise the money to help me. But yeah, there's still stuff that I've got to do. Got to do.
So what advice would you give people contemplating doing a ridiculous challenge like any of these that you've done? What advice would you give?
Well, probably not take my advice because I didn't train for any.
So didn't train for any?
No, I didn't train for any. I think I become a bit overwhelmed when I got close to it.
Yeah.
Because if you think about, I had mountains, I had cycling, I had swimming, I had charity football match, I had climbing, I just a bike ride. I just sort of got a little bit overwhelmed and thought, I just kept myself fit.
I want to be able to train for that because there's a lot of there's a lot of different muscle types that have got to be.
If I was doing like just mountains, then that's fine. If I was doing just bike rides, then it's fine. But I was doing lots of things, so I didn't train. So that's not good advice. Definitely don't do that. I just stayed fit. So yeah, my best advice would be actually train for what you're going to do, because that is going to make your life a hell of a lot easier. You won't need your brain as much as I did, I guess, in the end.
Correct gear. Or some of them, you go into extreme climates.
Actually, that probably is good advice I can give, is getting the right people around you. We talked about that already, but that's in business or challenges. Get the right people around you. It's not an easy journey, whatever one you're doing, business, being a business owner, or doing one of these challenges. Most people's bucket list is on doing Kilimanjaro or Everest in their lifetime. They're not easy. That's why it's a bucket list thing for a reason. So yeah, make sure you're going with the right people. Don't just go with your best mate because they're your best mate. If they're 28 stone and they're not going to get out there, all they're going to do is hold you back. So really think about that. Train properly and get the right people around you, because that will give you the best chance of succeeding in these. Then you don't have to use your mental fitness as much.
That works both in doing these types of challenges and business.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the best advice. But definitely do train. Because that is a regret I probably had. But I got it done. So who cares? Well, look, thanks for listening, guys. Thanks to Blake for doing that. Obviously,
Thank you.
Be a bit awkward if I interviewed myself because I don't know what people think. But thank you for tuning in. I sort of mentioned during this podcast that we're going to have a lot of different types of people speaking, and this is the launch episode. So do keep an eye out. We're going to have some really cool guests coming up in this series, and we're going to be exploring everything to do with mindset, business, success. And on that note, I will always ask everyone who features on my podcast what their definition of success is. So I'm going to put you right on the spot here, Blake. He does not know about this. Come on. What is your definition of success?
Mine personally, happiness will always have to come into it.
Yeah.
And freedom. I would love to get to that point in my business journey of having time freedom.
Time freedom.
Time freedom.
Yeah.
If you've got time freedom, in my opinion, you're successful.
That's pretty straightforward, actually. I like that.
That's me personally. If I can get to that point where it's money, obviously, will be a factor of the time freedom.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, if I could get to that point and go, for example, I love my job, so it's going to be difficult for me. But if I get up to the point of I don't have to go to work today, I don't have to do that because I have time freedom, then that's success.
Well, there's no right or wrong there. Thanks for that. Sorry to throw you on the spot. Thank you again for tuning in, guys. Keep an eye out for the new ones coming up. And if you want to join the community, reach out to me directly and I'll see if it suits you yourself.